history of the world continued. 1667 AD. Russia and Poland make peace with the Treaty of Antosovo, ending their 13-year war. Kiev, Smolensk, and the eastern Ukraine are ceded to Russia. John Milton's Paradise Lost is published. French troops invaded Flanders and Hainault, starting the War of Devolution. The Dutch sail up the Medway to Chatham, sinking several ships and taking the English flagship back to Holland. England, Holland, and France make peace by the Treaty of Breda. The Medway debacle leads to the fall of Clarendon and the Cabal administration under Clifford, Arlington, Buckingham, Ashley, and Lauderdale is formed. Cabal is a mnemonic for its members, but the word does not derive from them. The regent Pedro banishes Alfonso VI of Portugal to the Azores. 1668 AD. England, Holland, and Sweden ally by the Treaty of The Hague. John Dryden is appointed the first poet laureate. Spain recognizes Portuguese independence by the Treaty of Lisbon. The War of Devolution is ended by the Peace of Aix-la-Chapelle. Whilst Louis XIV and Emperor Leopold I reach an agreement over future partition of Spanish realms. John Casimir of Poland abdicates. 1669 AD. The Lithuanian Michael Wisniewski is elected King of Poland. The Mughal Aurangzeb bans Hinduism in India and destroys Hindu temples, leading to widespread revolts. Crete falls to the Ottomans. The Hanseatic League holds its last meeting. Antonio Stradivari makes his first violin. Samuel Pepys ceases writing his diary. 1670 AD. Frederick III of Denmark dies and is succeeded by his son, Christian V. The Ukrainian Cossacks rebel against Polish rule, but are suppressed by Jan Sobieski. Gabriel Mouton, a French clergyman, proposes the establishment of despotism. France and Bavaria make a defensive alliance, whilst Charles II makes the secret Treaty of Dover with Louis XIV, pledging anti-Dutch collaboration and conversion to Roman Catholicism at an appropriate moment. 1671 AD. The buccaneer Henry Morgan captures Panama City, is tried for piracy but pardoned and knighted by Charles II, and later becomes deputy governor of Jamaica. The Ottomans declare war on Poland. The Don Cossacks under Stenka Razin revolt, but their rising is quelled and Razin executed. Milton publishes Paradise Regained and Aphra Ben, The Forced Marriage. 1672 AD. The Russian serfs rebel. Charles II issues the Declaration of Indulgence. Louis XIV declares war on the Dutch and sends his troops in. An English fleet defeats the Dutch at Southwold Bay. The Dutch Grand Pensionary Jan de Witt and his brother Cornelius are murdered by a mob after William III of Orange has been appointed revived office of stadtholder and put in charge of the Dutch army. 1673 AD. Parliament forces Charles II to revoke the Declaration of Indulgence and instead passes the Test Act. Brandenburg pledges to refuse assistance to enemies of France by the Treaty of Vossen, whilst Leopold I declares war on France. Michael Wisniewski of Poland dies. The next day, Jan Sobieski defeats the Ottomans at Korczyn. 1674 AD. France devastates the Palatinate, while Spain deters the anti-French coalition. Jan Sobieski is elected King of Poland. England and Holland make peace by the Treaty of Westminster. The bandit Shivaji Bonsala founds a Maratha state as independent from the Mughal Empire. 1675 AD. France recovers Alsace after victory at Turckheim. Sweden goes to war with Denmark and Brandenburg, but is defeated by the latter at Verbellen. The Royal Greenwich Observatory is founded, with John Flamsteed as first Astronomer Royal. 1676 AD. Tsar Alexis dies and is succeeded by his son, Fyodor III. Jan Sobieski of Poland makes peace with the Ottomans under the Treaty of Żurawno, ceding the Polish Ukraine. The Swedes defeat the Danes at London. 1677 AD. The Dutch are defeated by the French at Kassel, but with the Danes defeat a Swedish fleet at Åland. Jean Racine's tragedy, Phaedra, is first performed. Edmund Halley returns from St. Helena, having catalogued the southern night sky. 1678 AD. France captures Ghent and Ypres. Russia joins the war against Sweden. France, Spain, and Holland make the peace of Nijmegen. Holland regains its lost territories. False allegations made by Titus Oates and others of a popish plot to kill Charles II lead to severe anti-Catholic measures. Hungarians under Emmerich Tokoli rebel against imperial rule. Brandenburg takes Stralsund from the Swedes. The factional terms Whig and Tory enter use in Parliament. 1679 AD. The Cavalier Parliament is dissolved. Archbishop Sharp of St. Andrews murdered by Covenanters, whose rising is defeated by Monmouth at Bothwell Brig. Louis XIV forces the peace of Saint-Germain-en-Laye on Sweden and Brandenburg. The latter relinquishes its conquests. Sweden and Denmark make peace by the Treaty of Lund. Henry Purcell is appointed organist of Westminster Abbey. 1680 AD. Shivaji Bonsala dies and is succeeded by his son, Sambhaji I. But Emperor Aurangzeb attempts to reconquer the Maranthas. Shogun Yatsuna dies and is succeeded by his brother, Tsunayoshi. 1681 AD. Charles II grants Pennsylvania as a nonconformist colony to William Penn. Emperor Kangxi suppresses the rebellion of the three feudatories. France annexes Strasbourg. Bank checks are issued for the first time in England. 1682 AD. Louis XIV moves his court to Versailles. The Chelsea Hospital is founded. La Salle reaches the mouth of the Mississippi, names the surrounding area Louisiana, claiming it for France. Tsar Fyodor III of Russia dies. His sister Sophia becomes regent for her younger brothers, Ivan V, who is mentally defective, and her half-brother Peter I, and seeks to kill Peter's supporters as a threat to her position. 1683 AD. By the League of the Hague, Spain and the Holy Roman Empire join Holland and Sweden in an anti-French coalition. The Rye House plot against Charles II and James, Duke of York, is unmasked. Lord William Russell and Algernon Sidney are executed for their roles in the plot, and the Earl of Essex commits suicide. Alfonso VI of Portugal dies and is succeeded by his brother Pedro II. Ottomans besiege Vienna, but are forced to withdraw by Jan Sobieski of Poland and Charles, Duke of Lorraine. China captures Formosa, or Taiwan. 1684 AD. The Japanese poet Seigaku composes 23,500 verses in 24 hours. The Holy Roman Empire, Poland and Venice form the Holy League of Linz against the Turks. Jews are expelled from Bordeaux. 1685 AD. Charles II dies and is succeeded by his brother James II, but his illegitimate son, the Duke of Monmouth, leads an uprising which ends in defeat at Sedgemoor. Monmouth is beheaded, and Judge Jeffreys conducts the bloody assizes against Monmouth's followers. Louis XIV revokes the Edict of Nantes, forcing Huguenots to flee abroad and damaging the French economy. 1686 AD. The Institut de Saint Louis is founded by Madame de Maintenon to educate the daughters of poor gentlefolk. The curriculum includes cookery. Graduates are given a blue ribbon, the cordon bleu. The League of Augsburg is formed against Louis XIV by the Holy Roman Empire, Spain, Sweden, Saxony, Bavaria, and the Palatinate. Buda is liberated from the Ottomans, whilst Russia declares war on them. 1687 AD. Shogun Tsunoyoshi forbids the killing of animals in Japan. James II proclaims freedom of worship and receives the papal nuncio. Ottomans defeated by Charles of Lorraine at Mohac, who expel them from Hungary. They lose the Greek Peloponnese and Athens to the Venetians. Sultan Muhammad IV is deposed by his janissaries and replaced by his brother Suleiman III. Newton's Principia is published. is succeeded by his son Frederick III. An heir to James II is born. To forestall a Catholic succession, William of Orange is invited to replace James, which he does in the Glorious Revolution. James II flees to exile in France. The Ottomans surrender Belgrade to the Austrians. France invades the Palatinate. A marine insurance society is founded in Edward Lloyd's coffee house in London. 1689 AD. Natal becomes a Dutch colony. Louis XIV declares war on Britain, whilst James II arrives in Ireland and besieges Londonderry. A Jacobite rising in Scotland defeats a Covenanter army at Killiecrankie before being defeated at Dunkeld. Regent Sophia is deposed in Russia after conspiring to abduct Peter I, who is established as Tsar. The Declaration of Rights is proclaimed in England. 1690 AD. Marlborough captures Cork and Kinsale from Jacobite supporters. Spain and Savoy join the League of Augsburg, which is defeated at Fleurus. The French defeat an Anglo-Dutch fleet off Beachy Head and burn Tynemouth. William III defeats James II at the Battle of the Boyne, forcing James back to France. Calcutta is founded by the East India Company. The Ottomans retake Transylvania, Serbia, Belgrade, and Bulgaria. 1691 AD. The first directory of addresses is published in Paris. Sultan Suleiman III dies and is succeeded by his brother Ahmad II, whose reign starts poorly with defeat at Slankamen and expulsion from Hungary. The Irish Jacobites are defeated at Aughrim and pacified by the Treaty of Limerick. 1692 AD. The Campbells massacre the MacDonalds at Glencoe. Marlborough is briefly imprisoned for suspected treasonable contact with James II. The Salem witch trials commence. The English defeat a French invasion fleet at La Hogue, but an Anglo-Dutch army is defeated at Steenkirk. Ernst Augustus of Brunswick is made Elector of Hanover. 1693 AD. William III borrows £1 million, instigating the national debt. French fleet defeats an Anglo-Dutch one at Cape St. Vincent and Lagos. French armies are also successful at Neerwinden and Marsaglia. 1694 AD. William Paterson leads the founding of the Bank of England, with Sir John Hiblon as its first governor. Shah Suleiman I of Persia dies and is succeeded by his son Hussein I. Mary II of England dies. 1695 AD. Princess Anne returns to court to act as hostess for her brother-in-law William III. Sultan Ahmed II dies and is succeeded by his nephew Mustafa II. William Paterson helps found the Bank of Scotland. Peter the Great besieges Azov, but is forced to withdraw by the Turks with heavy losses. William III takes Namur 6 AD. Jan Sobieski of Poland dies. Peter the Great takes Azov and conquers Kamchatka. The window tax is introduced in England, whilst John Locke and Isaac Newton reform the coinage. 1697 AD. Peter the Great travels incognito from Russia to study European ways of life. Karl XI of Sweden dies and is succeeded by his son, Karl XII. Elector Frederick Augustus I of Saxony is elected King of Poland, taking the title Augustus II. France, Britain, Spain, and the Holy Roman Empire make peace by the Treaty of Ryswick. Eugene of Savoy heavily defeats the Turks at Zenta. 1698 AD. Elector Ernst Augustus of Hanover dies and is succeeded by his son George. Leopold of Anhalt-Dessau introduces goose-stepping to the Prussian army. Whitehall Palace is largely destroyed by fire. The Streltsy, elite musketeer regiments, revolt in Moscow, but the rising is quelled. 1699 AD. Turkey signs the Peace of Karlowitz with Austria, to which it cedes Hungary, Croatia, and Transylvania. Turkey also cedes its portion of the Ukraine to Poland, and Moria and Dalmatia to Venice. Christian V of Denmark dies and is succeeded by his son Frederick IV. Denmark, Russia, Poland, and Saxony sign the Treaty of Preobrazhenskoe to carve up the Swedish Empire. William Dampier explores the western Australian coast. Henry Winstanley builds the first Eddystone lighthouse. 1700 AD. The German Protestant states adopt the Gregorian calendar. The Great Northern War opens with concerted attacks on Sweden. Saxony invades Livonia and Denmark invades Schleswig, but Sweden invades Zeeland, forces the Danes from the war by the Treaty of Travendal, and defeats Russia at Narva. The Duke of Gloucester dies, leaving no direct Stuart heir after Princess Anne, James Stuart being unacceptable. Charles II of Spain dies. The Habsburg line ends with him, and the throne goes to Philip V, grandson of Louis XIV. 1701 AD. Elector Frederick of Brandenburg makes himself King of Prussia. Emperor Leopold acquiesces in return for military aid. The War of the Spanish Succession opens. England, Holland, and Savoy join the Holy Roman Empire in the Grand Alliance. Karl XII of Sweden invades Poland. Eugene of Savoy defeats the French at Carpi and Chiara. Antoine Cadillac founds Detroit. The Act of Settlement provides for the succession in England to pass to Electress Sophia of Hanover after Princess Anne. Jethro Tull develops the seed drill. 1702 AD. William III dies and is succeeded in England by his sister-in-law Anne, whilst in Holland the stadtholdership is put into abeyance. The Daily Courant becomes London's first daily newspaper. Karl XII of Sweden takes Warsaw and Krakow. Marlborough 1703 AD. The Swedish defeat the Russians at Polotsk. Marlborough takes Cologne and Bonn. Peter the Great finds St. Petersburg. The Grand Alliance proclaims Archduke Charles of Austria King of Spain. Portugal joins the Grand Alliance and signs the Methuen Treaty with England. The Eddystone Lighthouse is destroyed as a great storm hits southern England. 1704 AD. Sweden secures the deposition of Augustus II of Poland in favour of Stanislaus Leszczynski. Gibraltar is captured by the English, who defeat a relieving force at Falaise, Malaga. Marlborough and Eugene of Savoy heavily defeat the French at Blenheim. Beau Nash becomes master of ceremonies at Bath. 1705 AD. Edmund Halley predicts the return in 1758 of the comet that will bear his name. Emperor Leopold dies and is succeeded by his son Joseph I. Peter the Great's westernization provokes revolts in Astrakhan. Barcelona falls to the Grand Alliance. 1706 AD. Karl XII of Sweden defeats a Russo-Saxon army at Fraustadt. Marlborough defeats the French at Ramillies. Brussels, Antwerp, Ghent and Ostend quickly capitulate to him. Archduke Charles is installed in Madrid, but is driven out after 3 months by Philip V of Spain. Eugene of Savoy defeats the French at Turin and drives them from Lombardy. Augustus II of Poland abdicates, recognizing his usurper Stanislaus I. 1707 AD. Emperor Aurangzeb dies and is succeeded by his son Azam Shah, whose death soon after puts his brother Bahadur Shah I on the throne. A French army under the Duke of Berwick defeats an Anglo-Portuguese force at Almanza. England and Scotland formally unite with the Act of Union. Prussia and Sweden sign a perpetual alliance. Admiral Sir Cloudesley Shovel's squadron runs aground in the Scillies. Only one man survives. Fortnum and Mason's opens in Piccadilly. 1708 AD. Marlborough and Eugene of Savoy defeat the French at Oudenarde. Marlborough subsequently captures Lille. Minorca captured by the British. The East India Company and the new East India Company merge. The Sikh Guru Govind Singh is assassinated by order of the Mughal Bahadur Shah. Karl XII of Sweden invades Ukraine. 1709 AD. The Tatler is launched by Richard Steele and Joseph Addison. Tsar Peter defeats Karl XII of Sweden at Poltava, forcing Karl to take refuge in Anatolia and breaking Sweden's power. Augustus II takes advantage of this by driving Stanislaus I from Poland and regaining the throne. Marlborough and Eugene of Savoy take Tournai and Mons and defeat the French at Malplaquet. Abraham Darby develops coke-fueled iron smelting at Coalbrookdale. 1710 AD. Stanhope is victorious at Almenara and Saragossa, but is defeated and captured at Brihuega. Handel is appointed Kapellmeister to Elector George of Hanover. Christopher Wren completes St. Paul's Cathedral. 1711 AD. Addiston and Steele launch The Spectator. Queen Anne establishes Ascot Racecourse. Emperor Joseph I dies and is succeeded by his brother Charles VI, who guarantees a Hungarian constitution by the Peace of Zathmar. Russia and Turkey sign the Treaty of Pruth. Tsar Peter is forced to return Azov to the Turks. Rio de Janeiro is captured by the French. The South Sea Company is established. Marlborough is dismissed from command and replaced by Ormond. 1712 AD. Civil war breaks out in Switzerland. The Protestant cantons are victorious at Velmergen, and peace is re-established by the Treaty of Orel. The Mughal Emperor Bahadur Shah I dies. His sons quarrel over the succession. 1713 AD. Farrukh Hazar, grandson of Bahadur Shah, establishes himself as Mughal Emperor. Karl XII of Sweden is taken prisoner by the Ottomans at Bender in Moravia. Frederick I of Prussia dies and is succeeded by his son, Frederick William I. The treaties of Utrecht end the War of the Spanish Succession, with Philip V allowed to keep the throne, establishing the Bourbon dynasty in the country. The thrones of France and Spain are never to be united. Emperor Charles VI does not sign. Charles VI issues the Pragmatic Sanction, allowing female succession in Habsburg domains. Shogun Ienobu dies and is succeeded by his infant son, Ieyasu. 1714 AD. The Board of Longitude promises a £20,000 reward for anybody who can discover a method of defining longitude. Russia gains control of Finland after victory at the Battle of Storkero. Charles VI makes peace with France at Rastatt and Baden. Queen Anne dies and is succeeded by her second cousin George I, as his mother Sophia had died shortly before. Karl XII of Sweden is released by the Turks. 1715 AD. Louis XIV dies and is succeeded by his great-grandson Louis XV. Mirveh, chief of Kandahar, dies. His son Mir Mahmud succeeds him, but is assassinated by his uncle Mir Abdullah, who takes power. The Earl of Mar leads a Jacobite rising in Scotland. The Old Pretender, James, lands at Peterhead to support the rising, but his supporters are defeated at Sheriff Moor and Preston. 1716 AD. The Old Pretender returns to France as the 15 Rebellion fizzles out. Shogun Ieyasu dies aged 7 and is succeeded by Yoshimun, a distant relation. Eugene of Savoy defeats the Ottomans at Peterwarden. Emperor Charles VI joins the war, and Temesvar, the last Ottoman possession in Hungary, falls. The Tsarevich Alexei flees Russia and places himself under the protection of Charles VI. 1717 AD. The Grand Lodge of the Freemasons is established at the Goose and Gridiron Tavern, Covent Garden. School attendance is made compulsory in Prussia. Lhasa is occupied by Mongols. Eugene of Savoy defeats the Ottomans at Belgrade. 1718 AD. Edward Teach, Blackbeard, is killed in a fight in North Carolina. The first English banknotes are issued. Philip V of Spain sends troops into Sicily. The quadruple alliance of the Empire, France, England, and Holland, is formed to counter him. Tsarevich Alexei is killed by order of Peter the Great, and his friends executed. Karl XII is killed at Frederiksson during an expedition into Norway, and is succeeded by his sister Ulrika. 1719 AD. Liechtenstein becomes an independent principality under Count Hans von Liechtenstein, who has bought the territory. Herat rebels against Shah Hussein and defeats an army sent to subdue the area. Sweden and Hanover make the Peace of Stockholm. The Mughal Emperor Farrukhsiyar dies, creating a succession dispute, which is eventually resolved when his cousin Muhammad ascends the throne. 1720 AD. The Great Northern War is brought to an end as Sweden makes peace with her neighbours. Ulrika of Sweden abdicates in favour of her husband Frederick of Hesse. A plague outbreak in Marseille is the final time the Black Death pandemic strikes. The South Sea Company collapses, South Sea Bubble, as does John Law's Mississippi Company, bringing ruin to many. China makes Tibet a protectorate. 1721 AD. A revolt in Formosa is suppressed by China. A regular postal service is established between London and New England. John Aislably, Chancellor of the Exchequer, is dismissed and imprisoned for fraud. Robert Walpole is appointed First Lord of the Treasury by George I, becoming the first Prime Minister. Sweden and Russia sign the Treaty of Neustadt. Russia gains Estonia. Peter the Great is proclaimed Emperor of all the Russias. 1722 AD. Mir Mahmud of Kandahar conquers Afghanistan, defeats the Persians at Gulnabad, and takes Isfahan. Shah Hussein abdicates in favour of his son, Tahmasp, but Mahmud proclaims himself Shah. Russia and the Ottoman Empire exploit the situation and invade. The Russians withdraw after an outbreak of ergotism. Hungary rejects Emperor Charles' pragmatic sanction. Jacob Roggeveen discovers Rapa Nui, naming it Easter Island. 1723 AD. Louis XV of France attains his majority, ending the Regency period. Britain and Prussia sign the Treaty of Charlottenburg, arranging marriages between the two royal houses. 1724 AD. Philip V of Spain abdicates in favour of his son Louis, who dies some months after, and Philip returns to the throne. Russia and the Ottoman Empire make a treaty for the dismembership of Persia, where Mir Mahmud goes insane. 1725 AD. Tsar Peter the Great dies and is succeeded by his widow Catherine I. The pragmatic sanction is guaranteed by the Treaty of Vienna. Tabriz falls to the Ottomans. Mir Mahmud kills 39 Persian princes. The surviving nobles elect his cousin Ashraf to replace the insane Shah, who is murdered on order of Ashraf. The Treaty of Hanover allies Britain, Prussia, and France against Austria and Spain. 1726 AD. Voltaire is exiled in England. General George Wade commences a program of road building in Scotland. Montevideo is founded. Cardinal Fleury becomes chief minister to Louis XV. 1727 AD. Spain besieges Gibraltar, but does not formally declare war on Britain. Shah Ashraf defeats an Ottoman army, and the two powers make peace. Catherine I of Russia dies, and is succeeded by Peter II, a grandson of Peter I. George I dies of apoplexy, and is succeeded by his son, George II. 1728 AD. The Kyakhta Treaty sets the border and terms of trade between China and Russia. Spain abandons its siege of Gibraltar when the Convention of the Prado settles a truce with Britain. Roman Catholics are disenfranchised in Ireland. Vitus Bering discovers the Bering Strait. The Empire and Prussia make the Treaty of Berlin. A Freemasons' lodge is founded in Madrid, but is quickly suppressed by the Inquisition. 1729 AD. Emperor Yongzheng bans opium smoking in China. Corsica temporarily becomes independent of Genoa. France, Britain, and Spain end hostilities with the Treaty of Seville. Charles Wesley founds the Holy Club at Oxford with his brother John and George Whitehead. 1730 AD. Peter II of Russia dies of smallpox. His cousin Anne takes power in a coup. Shah Ashraf is murdered after defeat near Shiraz. Tahmasp II returns to power. Viscount Townshend improves crop husbandry with the use of turnips after leaving Walpole's government. Crown Prince Frederick of Prussia is imprisoned at Custrin after attempting to flee to England. Sultan Ahmed III is deposed and replaced by his nephew Mahmud I. Frederick IV of Denmark dies and is succeeded by his son Christian VI. 1731 AD. John Hadley invents the reflecting quadrant. Shah Tahmasp is defeated by the Ottomans at Arajan and sues for peace, ceding large tracts of land to the Ottomans. Tahmasp is imprisoned by his brother-in-law, Nadir Quli, and his infant son Abbas III set up as Shah. The Holy Roman Empire makes the Treaty of Vienna with Britain, Holland, and Spain, securing